The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of Seoul National University's genetics laboratory. Students hurried through the hallways with their heavy books and coffee cups. Among them walked Minji Kim, a 22-year-old woman who looked no different from her classmates. She carried the same textbooks and wore the same tired expression that came from late-night studying. But there was something different about Minji that no one could see. Dr. Jaewon Park stood at the front of his advanced genetics classroom, writing complex formulas on the whiteboard. The equations covered topics that most graduate students struggled with for months. He turned to face his class of 30 students. "Today we will solve the Henderson protein folding problem," Dr. Park announced. "This puzzle has challenged researchers for over 2 years. I want you to work in groups of 4 and see how far you can get." The students groaned quietly. They knew this problem was nearly impossible. Research teams at major universities had spent countless hours trying to crack it. Some had given up entirely. Minji raised her hand. "Professor, may I work alone today?" Dr. Park smiled. He had grown used to Minji's unusual requests. In 3 years of teaching her, he had never seen a student quite like her. While others struggled with basic concepts, Minji grasped advanced theories as if they were simple math problems. "Of course, Minji, take your time." The other students formed their groups and began discussing the problem. Papers rustled as they flipped through textbooks. Voices filled the room as they debated different approaches. Meanwhile, Minji sat quietly at her desk, staring at the problem written on the board. Her mind worked differently than others. Where her classmates saw confusing symbols and impossible calculations, Minji saw patterns. The genetic sequences seemed to dance before her eyes, forming shapes and connections that made perfect sense. It was like reading a story written in a language only she understood. 20 minutes passed. The student groups had barely begun to understand the basic structure of the problem. They drew diagrams and made lists, trying to break down the complex protein into smaller parts. Minji stood up and walked to the front of the classroom. In her hand, she held a single sheet of paper covered with neat handwriting. "I think I have the solution," she said quietly. The room fell silent. Dr. Park looked surprised. Even for Minji, this was remarkably fast. "Show us what you found," he said. Minji wrote her solution on the board with smooth, confident strokes. Her approach was unlike anything Dr. Park had seen before. Instead of following the traditional methods taught in textbooks, she had found a completely new way to solve the problem. Her solution was elegant and simple, cutting through the complexity that had confused so many researchers. Dr. Park studied her work carefully. He checked each step, looking for errors. There were none. In 20 minutes, Minji had solved a problem that had stumped teams of experienced scientists for 2 years. "This is incredible," Dr. Park whispered. "Minji, how did you see this pattern?" Minji shrugged, a habit she had developed when people asked about her abilities. "It just made sense to me. The protein wants to fold this way. I could see it." The other students stared at the board in amazement. They'd barely understood the problem, let alone the solution. Some looked frustrated, others impressed. A few seemed almost frightened by what Minji had accomplished. After class, Dr. Park asked Minji to stay behind. This was becoming a regular occurrence. Every few weeks, she would solve something that should have been impossible for a student her age. "Minji, I need to ask you something," Dr. Park said, closing the classroom door. "How long have you been able to do things like this?" "What do you mean?" Minji asked, though she knew exactly what he meant. "You solve problems faster than my graduate students. Faster than most professors, if I'm being honest. Your mind works in ways I've never seen before. Have you always been this way?" Minji was quiet for a long moment. She had spent years trying to hide her true abilities, but it was becoming harder. Each semester, the work got more challenging, and she found it difficult to pretend to struggle with concepts that seemed obvious to her. "I've always been good at science," she said finally. "My parents say I was reading advanced books when I was very young." "What do your parents do for work?" "They run a small farm on Jeju Island." "They're good people, But they don't understand science like I do. Dr. Park nodded, but something about her answer puzzled him. How could farm workers produce a child with such extraordinary scientific abilities? Genetics didn't usually work that way. Minji, I'd like to invite you to join my research project, Dr. Park said. We're studying genetic mutations that might lead to enhanced human intelligence. Your abilities would be invaluable to our work. Minji felt a chill run down her spine. The word mutations always made her nervous. She had spent her entire life knowing she was different, but she had never wanted anyone to study why. What would the research involve? She asked. Mostly theoretical work. Genetic modeling, data analysis, that sort of thing. But we would need a blood sample from you as well, to compare your genetic markers with our other subjects. The room seemed to grow colder. Minji had avoided medical tests whenever possible. She had a feeling that her blood might reveal more than she wanted anyone to know. I'll think about it, she said. That evening, Minji sat in her small apartment near the university. She had lived alone since starting college, preferring solitude to the complicated social interactions that came with roommates. She stared out her window at the city lights below. Her phone buzzed with a text from her adoptive mother, Sora. How are your studies going, dear? Your father and I are so proud of you. Minji smiled sadly. Sora and Dongyun had been wonderful parents, but they could never understand the burden of being different. They thought her intelligence was a gift. They didn't know about the sleepless nights when her mind raced with thoughts too complex for normal human consciousness. They didn't know about the loneliness of being the only person in the world who saw patterns that others couldn't even imagine. She thought about Dr. Park's offer. Part of her wanted to help with the research. Maybe she could find others like herself. Maybe she could finally understand why she was different, but another part of her was terrified. What if the blood test revealed something that couldn't be explained? What if she wasn't just unusually intelligent? What if she was something else entirely? Outside her window, the stars shone brightly in the clear night sky. Somewhere among those distant lights, Minji had always felt, was the answer to who she really was. 3 days had passed since Dr. Park offered Minji the research position. She had avoided his calls and skipped 2 classes, something she had never done before. But the fear of discovery was stronger than her perfect attendance record. On Thursday morning, Minji finally returned to the genetics lab. She hoped to slip in quietly and continue her studies without drawing attention. But as soon as she entered the building, she saw Dr. Park waiting by the elevator. Minji, we need to talk, he said. His voice was serious, almost urgent. I'm sorry I missed class, Professor. I wasn't feeling well. This isn't about missed classes. Please come to my office immediately. Dr. Park's office was on the 3rd floor, filled with books and research papers. The walls were covered with charts showing DNA sequences and genetic maps. Minji had always found the office comforting before, but today it felt like a trap. Dr. Park closed the door and gestured for her to sit down. On his desk lay a manila folder with her name written on it. Minji, I ran some tests, he began. Her heart started beating faster. What kind of tests? Remember last month when all students gave blood samples for the anemia study? I kept a small portion of yours for additional research. I hope you don't mind. Minji's hands began to shake. She had completely forgotten about that routine blood draw. All students had participated without thinking twice about it. What did you find? She asked, though she was terrified to hear the answer. Dr. Park opened the folder and pulled out several sheets of paper covered with genetic sequences. At first, I thought our equipment was broken. The results didn't make sense, so I ran the test again and then a 3rd time. He handed her the papers. The genetic sequences looked like normal DNA at first glance, but Minji could see the differences immediately. Mixed within the familiar double helix pattern were structures that didn't belong to any Earth organism. Your DNA contains sequences that I've never seen before, Dr. Park continued. They don't match anything in our genetic databases. Not human, not animal, not plant, not even bacterial. Minji stared at the papers, her worst fears coming true. The secret she had carried her entire life was finally exposed. "There's more," Dr. Park said gently. "The unknown sequences make up about 40% of your genetic code. The rest is human, but even the human parts are unusual. They show optimizations that shouldn't exist in natural evolution." The room was quiet except for the hum of computers. Minji felt like she was drowning in silence. "I need you to explain this to me," Dr. Park said. "Where did you come from, Minji? Who are your real parents?" For a moment, Minji considered lying. She could make up a story about unknown medical conditions or genetic experiments. But looking at the evidence in front of her, she knew the truth would come out eventually. "I don't know who my real parents are," she said quietly. "What do you mean?" Minji took a deep breath. The story she had never told anyone was about to change everything. "Sora and Dongyun Choi found me when I was a baby. They were hiking in the mountains of Jeju Island 22 years ago. It was early morning and they saw strange lights in the sky the night before." Dr. Park leaned forward, listening carefully. "They found me lying in a crater next to pieces of what looked like metal. But the metal was unlike anything they had ever seen. It was warm to the touch and glowed with a soft blue light. What happened to this metal? My parents kept some pieces. They're still at the farm. They always told people I was their biological daughter, and everyone believed them because I looked Korean enough." Dr. Park was taking notes rapidly. "Did you always know you were different?" "Yes, but not like this. I knew I was smarter than other children, but I thought that was just luck. When I was 5, I was reading university textbooks. When I was 10, I understood complex mathematics that my teachers had never seen. Why didn't you tell anyone?" "My parents were scared. They loved me, but they were simple farmers. They didn't understand what I was, and they were afraid that if people knew the truth, someone would take me away from them." Dr. Park set down his pen and looked at her with a mixture of wonder and concern. "Minji, do you understand what this means? Your genetic code suggests that you're not entirely human. The non-human DNA contains information that our current science can't fully decode." "What kind of information?" "I'm not sure yet, but it appears to be incredibly complex. Almost like biological data storage. There could be knowledge encoded in your genes that goes far beyond anything humans have discovered." Minji felt a strange sensation, as if something deep inside her mind was awakening. She had always felt like her intelligence came from somewhere else, like she was accessing information that wasn't quite her own. "Professor, what are you going to do with this information?" Dr. Park was quiet for a long moment. "That depends on you. This discovery could change everything we know about life on Earth, but it could also put you in danger. There are people who would want to study you, possibly against your will. What do you think I should do?" "I think we need to be very careful. And I think we need to examine those metal fragments that your parents kept." Minji nodded. She had always wondered about those strange pieces of metal. Her adoptive parents had shown them to her when she was old enough to understand, but they had never known what to make of them. "There's something else," Dr. Park said. "In all my years of genetic research, I've heard rumors about other cases like yours. Children found under mysterious circumstances, all with extraordinary abilities. You think there are others like me?" "I think it's possible. If your DNA is evidence of contact with non-human intelligence, you might not be alone." Minji felt a mix of excitement and fear. The idea that she might not be the only one like herself was both comforting and terrifying. "What happens next?" she asked. "First, we need to travel to Jeju Island and examine those metal fragments. Then we need to find out if there really are others like you." As they talked, neither of them noticed the small recording device hidden behind the books on Dr. Park's shelf. Someone else had been listening to their entire conversation, and that someone was already making phone calls to very dangerous people. 2 weeks after the DNA revelation, Minji and Dr. Park were preparing for their trip to Jeju Island when everything changed. Minji was packing her bag in her apartment when she heard a sharp knock on her door. She looked through the peephole and saw a man in a dark suit standing in the hallway. He looked official and serious, the kind of person who brought bad news. "Miss Kim, my name is Captain Sunho Nam. I work for the government. We need to talk." Minji's blood ran cold. This was exactly what she had feared would happen. "I'm not opening the door," she called through the wood. "Miss Kim, we know about your DNA test results. We know about the metal fragments. And we know you're planning to visit Jeju Island tomorrow. Please open the door. I'm here to help you, not hurt you." Against her better judgment, Minji slowly opened the door. Captain Nam was a tall man with kind eyes, but his presence still frightened her. "How do you know about my DNA?" she asked. "We've been monitoring unusual genetic discoveries for many years. Dr. Park's lab has been under surveillance since he started his intelligence research project. You've been spying on us? We've been protecting you. May I come in? What I have to tell you is very important." Minji reluctantly let him enter her small apartment. Captain Nam sat down at her kitchen table and pulled out a thick folder. "Miss Kim, you are not the first person we've encountered with your unique genetic profile. Over the past 30 years, we have found 7 others." Minji felt her legs go. Weak, she sat down across from him. 7 others like me? All found as infants near crash sites. All with extraordinary intelligence. All with the same type of non-human DNA mixed with human genes. Captain Nam opened his folder and showed her photographs. Each picture showed a young person, all appearing to be in their 20s or 30s. This is Jiwan Lee, found near Bisan 28 years ago. He solved advanced mathematical theorems when he was 12 years old. Today he works as a quantum physics researcher. He showed her another photo. This is Taeyong Seo, found near Incheon 25 years ago. He created 3 new computer programming languages before he turned 20. The photos continued. Each person looked normal, but Minji could see something familiar in their eyes. The same look of intelligence that people often commented on when they met her. "Where are they now?" Minji asked. "They live normal lives, but they stay in contact with each other, and they're all monitored by our organization." "What organization?" "We call ourselves the Contact Protocol Division. We were created after the first discovery 30 years ago. Our job is to study and protect individuals like yourself." Captain Nam showed her more documents. "We believe you and the others were sent here deliberately. The crash sites weren't accidents, they were planned landings. Sent by who? We don't know yet. But we think you were meant to be found and raised by humans, like some kind of long-term observation project." Minji's mind raced with questions. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because things are changing. The others have been experiencing unusual developments recently. Their abilities are growing stronger. And we think the same thing might be happening to you." As if responding to his words, Minji suddenly felt a strange sensation in her head. It was like a radio being tuned to a new station. She could sense thoughts and feelings that weren't her own. "Something's happening," she whispered. "What do you feel?" "I can sense other minds. Not clearly, but they're there." 7 of them, scattered across the country. Captain Nam nodded grimly. "It's starting. We need to get you to the others immediately." "I don't understand what's happening to me. We have a safe facility where all 8 of you can meet. There's someone there who can explain everything. Her name is Dr. Yunbi Yoon, and she's been studying your kind for over 2 decades. Within an hour, Minji found herself in the back of a government car, speeding toward a location Captain Nam wouldn't reveal. They drove for 3 hours, eventually arriving at what looked like a small research facility hidden in the mountains outside Seoul. The building was surrounded by high fences and security guards, but it didn't feel like a prison. It felt more like a retreat center or private school. Captain Nam led her inside, where she met Dr. Yoon, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a warm smile. "Minji, we've been waiting for you," Dr. Yoon said. "The others are very excited to meet you. The others are here. They arrived yesterday when the connection began. Follow me." Dr. Yoon led her down a hallway to a large common room. Inside, 7 young people sat around a table, talking quietly among themselves. When Minji entered, they all looked up at once. The sensation in her head grew stronger. She could feel their thoughts touching hers like gentle waves on a beach. "Welcome," said a young man who must have been Jiwan. "We've been waiting for you to join us." A woman with short hair stood up. "I'm Yuna Park. I study advanced physics." "Are you feeling the connection too?" Minji nodded, overwhelmed by the experience of meeting others like herself. "It's incredible, isn't it?" said another young man. "I'm Minho Kang. I work with biological systems. This mental connection started 3 days ago for all of us." Dr. Yoon gestured for everyone to sit down. "What you're experiencing is the activation of dormant neural pathways encoded in your DNA. Your creators designed you to work together when the time was right." "Our creators?" Minji asked. "The intelligence that sent you here. We've been studying the evidence for decades, and we believe you were sent as advanced scouts for a larger purpose." "What purpose?" Dr. Yoon's expression became serious. "That's what we need to figure out. But first, you need to understand the full truth about why you're here and what's coming." The mental connection grew stronger, and suddenly Minji could sense not just the presence of the others, but glimpses of their knowledge and abilities. It was like having access to 7 brilliant minds all at once. "This is just the beginning," Dr. Yoon said. "Your real abilities are about to emerge, and when they do, everything will change." Outside the windows, storm clouds were gathering, as if the sky itself knew that something important was about to happen. Dr. Yoon led the 8 hybrids into a secure conference room deep within the facility. The walls were covered with star maps, genetic diagrams, and photographs of crash sites from around the world. At the center of the room stood a large table, with metal fragments arranged in careful patterns. "These pieces were collected from all 8 crash sites," Dr. Yoon explained. "When we brought them together, something remarkable happened." She pressed a button on a small device. The metal fragments began to glow with the same blue light that Minji remembered from her childhood. But now the pieces were doing something new. They were projecting images into the air above the table. The first image showed Earth as seen from space, but it looked different. There were structures orbiting the planet that didn't belong to any human space program. "For the past 30 years, we've been watched," Dr. Yoon said. "These orbital platforms have been monitoring our planet, studying our development, and recording our progress." Jiwan leaned forward, his mathematical mind already working on the implications. "How long have they been watching us?" "The evidence suggests thousands of years. But the intensive observation began around the time the first atomic weapons were used. Your arrival 30 years ago marked the beginning of what we believe is an evaluation period." The images changed, showing scenes of human history, wars, environmental destruction, technological advances, and moments of cooperation and peace. "We are being tested," Dr. Yoon continued. "The intelligence that created you has been determining whether humanity is ready to join a larger galactic community." Yuna, the physics specialist, spoke up. "What happens if we fail this test?" Dr. Yoon's expression darkened. "Based on our analysis of the genetic data encoded in your DNA, failure means isolation. Humanity would be cut off from the rest of the galaxy, trapped on Earth forever." The room fell silent as the weight of this revelation sank in. Minji felt the mental connection with the others growing stronger. Through their shared consciousness, she could sense their fear and determination. "How much time do we have?" asked Minho. The evaluation period was set for 50 Earth years. "We are now in the final decade." Taeyang, the programming expert, stood up suddenly. "I'm receiving something. Data streams. It's like information is being downloaded directly into my brain." The others nodded. They were all experiencing the same phenomenon. Knowledge that had been dormant in their DNA was finally activating. "This is the awakening protocol," Dr. Yoon explained. "As the evaluation period nears its end, your true capabilities are being unlocked. You were designed to help humanity pass this test." Over the next few hours, the changes in the 8 hybrids were dramatic. Minji found that she could process information at incredible speeds, understanding complex scientific concepts in seconds. Ji-won began solving mathematical problems that had puzzled researchers for decades. Yuna gained intuitive knowledge of physics that seemed to bend the laws of reality, but with their enhanced abilities came disturbing news from the outside world. Captain Nam burst into the conference room with urgent reports. We have a problem. Defense Minister Jin Ho-kang has learned about your existence. He's mobilizing military forces to capture you. Why? Minji asked. He sees your abilities as weapons. He wants to use your knowledge to create advanced military technology that would give our country dominance over others. Dr. Yoon shook her head. That's exactly the kind of thinking that will cause humanity to fail the evaluation. The Watchers are looking for signs that we can move beyond warfare and competition. Through their mental link, the hybrids could feel the approach of hostile forces. Military vehicles were surrounding the facility. We need to leave, said Sejin, one of the quieter members of the group. If they capture us, everything we're meant to accomplish will be impossible. Where can we go? Minji asked. Yuna's enhanced physics knowledge provided the answer. I know how to create a camouflage field using principles I just learned. We can hide ourselves while we figure out our next move. Working together, the 8 hybrids combined their abilities in ways none of them had imagined possible. Yuna created the camouflage technology, Taeyong programmed control systems, Ji-won calculated the precise energy requirements, and the others contributed their specialized knowledge. Within minutes, they had created a portable device that could make them invisible to most detection methods. As military forces stormed the facility, the hybrids escaped through a hidden exit that Dr. Yoon had prepared for emergencies. Where will you go? Dr. Yoon asked as they prepared to part ways. We need to find a place where we can work on solutions to humanity's biggest problems, Minji said. The environmental crisis, energy shortages, global conflicts. If we can solve these issues, maybe we can prove that humanity deserves to join the galactic community. But we'll have to do it while hiding from people who want to use us as weapons, added G1. Dr. Yoon handed them encrypted communication devices. Stay in contact. And remember, you're not just trying to save yourselves, you're trying to save the entire human race. As they separated into small groups and melted into the night, the hybrids carried with them knowledge that could transform human civilization. But they also carried the terrible burden of knowing that failure meant eternal isolation among the stars. Above them, invisible to human eyes, the orbital platforms continued their patient observation. The Watchers were waiting to see what choice humanity would make in its final years of evaluation. The test was entering its most critical phase, and 8 extraordinary young people held the future of their entire species in their hands. In the distance, search helicopters swept the area with powerful lights, hunting for the most important people on Earth, but their quarry had already vanished into the shadows, carrying secrets that could either elevate humanity to the stars or condemn it to solitude forever. 6 months had passed since the hybrids escaped from the government facility. They had split into small groups and hidden in different parts of the country, using their enhanced abilities to stay one step ahead of the military forces hunting them. Minji, Ji-won, and Yuna had found refuge in an abandoned research station in the mountains. Using salvaged equipment and their extraordinary knowledge, they had built a secret laboratory where they worked on solutions to humanity's greatest challenges. The changes in their abilities continued to accelerate. Minji could now process the entire internet's worth of information in minutes. Ji-won had developed mathematical models that predicted global events with startling accuracy. Yuna had unlocked physics principles that seemed impossible by human standards. But their greatest breakthrough came when they learned to fully combine their consciousness. I can feel all of your thoughts, Minji said during one of their evening sessions. It's like having 3 supercomputers working as one. The sensation is incredible, Ji-won agreed. We're becoming something more than individual humans. Through their shared awareness, they discovered that the other 5 hybrids were experiencing similar changes. Taeyong had created computer programs that could solve problems faster than any existing technology. Minho had developed biological Solutions that could clean up environmental damage in months instead of decades. Most importantly, they were making progress on the technologies encoded in their DNA. Look at this, Una said, showing her companions a device she had built using principles that no human scientist had ever imagined. It's a fusion reactor that can fit in a backpack. Clean, unlimited energy. And I figured out how to grow food using atmospheric processors, Minho reported through their mental link from his hiding place near Bisan. We could end world hunger within a year. But their work was interrupted by disturbing news from the outside world. Global tensions were rising rapidly. Climate change was accelerating beyond all predictions. Several countries were on the verge of war. The very problems the hybrids were trying to solve were getting worse faster than ever before. It's like the planet is falling apart just as we're learning how to fix it, Minji observed. Through their connection, Xiaojun shared an alarming discovery. I've been monitoring global communication networks. The Watchers aren't just observing anymore. They're testing us. What do you mean? Yuna asked. The recent disasters aren't all natural. Some of them are being triggered deliberately. The orbital platforms are creating crisis situations to see how humanity responds. The revelation was shocking. The alien intelligence wasn't just watching human development. It was actively pushing humanity toward breaking points to test their resilience and cooperation. The final evaluation is beginning, Jiwan realized. They're seeing if we can come together in a crisis or if we'll destroy ourselves. As if responding to their discovery, the hybrids felt their abilities surge to new levels. Information flooded their minds so rapidly that it was almost overwhelming. Technologies, scientific principles, and knowledge about the universe poured into their consciousness. I understand now, Minji said, her eyes wide with revelation. We're not just scouts, we're a bridge. Our DNA contains the complete technological and cultural knowledge of the civilization that sent us. But there's a trigger, Taiyang added, from his location. This knowledge only becomes accessible when humanity faces extinction. It's a last resort gift. The flood of information revealed the true scope of their situation. The alien civilization that created them had faced a similar test millions of years ago. Some species passed and joined the galactic community. Others failed and remained isolated until they either evolved naturally or destroyed themselves. Earth is approaching the same crossroads, Yuna said. The next few years will determine humanity's fate for thousands of generations. But their work was about to become much more dangerous. Defense Minister Jin Ho-kang had not given up his hunt for the hybrids. Using advanced tracking technology and military resources, his forces had located 3 of their hiding places. We need to move immediately, Captain Nam warned them through an encrypted message. Kang has convinced the president that you're a threat to national security. He has authorization to capture you by any means necessary. The hybrids faced an impossible choice. They could continue hiding and working in secret, but their progress would be slow. Or they could reveal themselves and risk being captured and used as weapons. There's a third option, Minji said during an emergency meeting conducted through their mental link. We could demonstrate our technologies publicly. Show the world what we can do to help. That's incredibly dangerous, Viwan pointed out. Every government on Earth would want to control us. But if we don't act soon, humanity might not have another chance, Yuna argued. The environmental collapse is accelerating. Wars are breaking out. We're running out of time. Through their enhanced awareness, they could sense the alien watchers increasing their observations. More orbital platforms were moving into position around Earth. The final evaluation was approaching rapidly. I vote we take the risk, Minji said. We reveal our technologies to the world and hope that enough people will choose cooperation over conflict. One by one, the other 7 agreed. They would emerge from hiding and offer humanity its last best hope for joining the galactic community. But first, they had to survive the military forces that were closing in on their locations. As helicopters appeared on the horizon and ground, troops surrounded their hideouts. The 8 most important people on Earth prepared to make their greatest gamble. The future of human civilization hung in the balance, and the watchers above prepared to render their final judgment. The final confrontation came sooner than anyone expected. Global environmental collapse accelerated beyond all predictions. Ocean levels rose rapidly, massive storms destroyed entire cities, and crop failures led to widespread famine. It was as if the planet itself was testing humanity's ability to survive. In the midst of this chaos, the 8 hybrids made their decision to reveal themselves to the world. Minji stood in the main, broadcasting studio of Seoul's largest television network. Through their mental connection, she could feel the presence of the other 7 hybrids positioned at similar locations around the globe. In 30 minutes, they would simultaneously interrupt every television, radio, and internet signal on Earth. "Are you ready for this?" Guwan asked through their shared consciousness. "We have to be," Minji replied. "It's now or never." Outside the studio, military forces led by Defense Minister Jin Ho-kang were preparing to storm the building. But the hybrids had used their advanced technology to create barriers that would hold them off long enough to deliver their message. At exactly noon Seoul time, the regular programming on every electronic device on Earth was replaced by the same image: 8 young people sitting at a table, with Minji as their spokesperson. "People of Earth," Minji began, her voice reaching billions of listeners simultaneously. "My name is Minji Kim, and I have something important to tell you about your future." Around the world, people stopped what they were doing to listen. In offices, homes, schools, and public spaces, humanity focused on the words of a young woman who looked no different from anyone else. 30 years ago, 8 children were found at crash sites around the world. We are those children, and we are not entirely human. The revelation sent shockwaves through the global audience. But Minji continued without pause. "We were sent here by an advanced civilization that has been watching Earth for thousands of years. You are being evaluated to determine if humanity is ready to join a community of intelligent species that spans the galaxy." Through their mental link, the hybrids could sense the reactions of people worldwide. Fear, excitement, disbelief, and hope mixed together in a wave of human emotion. "The evaluation period is ending," Minji continued. "The environmental disasters you are experiencing are not entirely natural. They are tests to see how humanity responds to crisis. Do you come together to solve problems, or do you fight each other while the world burns around you?" Yuna took over the broadcast from her location in London. "We have been given knowledge that can solve your greatest challenges. Clean energy that could power the world forever. Technology that can reverse climate change in months. Methods to grow food anywhere, even in the harshest environments." Jawan spoke from Tokyo. "But this knowledge comes with a condition. It only works if humanity chooses cooperation over conflict. The technologies require global unity to function." The response from world leaders was immediate and divided. Some called for the hybrids to be captured and studied. Others demanded that they share their technologies immediately. A few recognized the larger implications and called for international cooperation. Defense Minister Kang finally broke through the barriers around the Seoul studio. Armed soldiers surrounded Minji, their weapons trained on her. "End this broadcast immediately," Kang demanded. "You are under arrest for threatening national security." Minji looked directly into the camera. "This is exactly what our creators were afraid of. Even when faced with extinction, some humans choose power over survival." Through their connection, the 8 hybrids made a unanimous decision. They activated the final protocol encoded in their DNA around the world. The technologies they had developed began broadcasting their blueprints to every computer, smartphone, and electronic device on the planet. Within minutes, the knowledge needed to save humanity was available to anyone who wanted to use it, but there was a catch that only became apparent as people tried to build the devices. "The technologies won't work unless they're built cooperatively," Tae-young explained from his location in Berlin. "No single nation can create them alone. They require resources, expertise, and coordination from multiple countries working together." The alien watchers had designed the ultimate test. Humanity could save itself, but only by abandoning the nationalism and competition that had dominated their history. Some world leaders immediately began forming international coalitions to develop the hybrid technologies. Others tried to hoard the knowledge for their own countries and found that nothing would function properly. The next few days were chaotic. Protests erupted in some countries as people demanded their governments cooperate with international efforts. In other places, citizens organized across national borders to build the life-saving technologies themselves. Minji, now in military custody but still connected to the other hybrids, watched the global response with a mixture of hope and fear. "It's working in some places," Minho reported from his cell in Brazil. "The atmospheric processors are beginning to function in regions where multiple countries are working together. But it's failing in others," Seojun added sadly from Japan. "Some governments are still trying to weaponize our knowledge instead of using it to help people." Above Earth, the orbital platforms began moving into new positions. The Watchers were preparing to make their final judgment. On the seventh day, after the global broadcast, something unprecedented happened. The United Nations called an emergency session, and for the first time in history, every member nation attended. The session was broadcast worldwide as leaders debated humanity's future. Some argued for continued secrecy and national control. Others recognized that cooperation was the only path to survival. The turning point came when a devastating earthquake struck the Pacific Rim, triggering tsunamis that threatened millions of lives. But instead of responding individually, the affected nations immediately activated the hybrid emergency protocols. Working together, they deployed atmospheric processors that stopped the tsunamis, fusion generators that powered massive rescue operations, and biological systems that prevented disease outbreaks in refugee camps. The rescue operation saved over 10 million lives and demonstrated what humanity could accomplish when they worked as one species instead of competing nations. That night, the orbital platforms began transmitting a new signal. The hybrids felt it first, a sensation of profound peace and acceptance flowing through their shared consciousness. "It's a welcome message," Minji whispered, tears streaming down her face. "We passed the test." The signal was soon detected by human scientists around the world. It was a complex mathematical sequence that translated into multiple languages simultaneously. "Greetings. To the people of Earth, you have demonstrated the wisdom and cooperation necessary to join the galactic community. Prepare for contact." 3 days later, the first alien ship entered Earth's atmosphere. It landed not in any single country's territory, but in international waters, requiring cooperation between nations just to meet the visitors. Minji and the other 7 hybrids were released from custody to serve as translators and guides. As they stood on the deck of the international vessel waiting to greet their creators, Minji reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment. Her perfect grades in university had been just the beginning. Her non-human DNA had been the key to humanity's future among the stars. The airlock of the alien ship opened, and beings who looked remarkably similar to the hybrids stepped out to greet their human relatives. "Welcome to the galactic community," their leader said in perfect Korean, then repeated the message in dozens of other Earth languages. "Your long isolation is over." As representatives from around the world gathered to witness humanity's first official contact with an alien civilization, Minji realized that her strange origin story had always been leading to this moment. She had been the bridge between two worlds, and now those worlds were finally coming together.